Welcome to today's episode, brought to you by the Women in Medicine Summit, a transformational CME conference happening September 13th to 14th at the Drake Hotel in Chicago. Engage in leadership programming, learn negotiation skills, receive on-site coaching and mentoring, and see who will win this year's I Stand With Her awards. This year, we're excited to offer unique programming that includes a special session on how using improv comedy can bring fun back into medicine. We also have financial sessions tailored to help you navigate the complexities of personal and professional finances. Discover ways to advance into leadership roles, combat burnout, and either reignite your love for your current role or find joy in a new career path. Don't forget our Friday evening gala, a highlight this year you definitely won't want to miss. Register now at womeninmedicinesummit.org and be part of the movement that is shaping the future of healthcare. Join us to network, learn, and celebrate the power of women in medicine.
Today's episode expanded my mind and my heart. It was such an honor to have Dr. Patel on the podcast. He goes by Rip. He's the founder and lead for Precision Emergency Medicine. He is a true Renaissance man. He initially was intent on pursuing film, and then he completed his undergraduate at New York University in economics with honors, with a minor in Middle Eastern studies, and graduated magna cum laude from that. As a finalist for the Rhodes Scholarship, he completed biomedical research at Harvard Medical School in neuromuscular disorders, specifically focusing on muscular dystrophy. He also completed a brief stint as a research associate in the Science and Technology Division at the Council on Foreign Relations, where he was involved in the nuclear bioterrorism research and evaluating our homeland security. Dr. Patel completed his MD at UT Southwestern Medical Center on an alumni scholarship after declining a full scholarship to the Mayo Clinic. He finished his MPH at King's College London with a focus on global health, and after a short hiatus in general surgery, he found his home in emergency medicine, where he completed his residency at Thomas Jefferson University Hospitals. Dr. Patel is an assistant professor at the Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas, where he is privileged to work with the emergency medicine residents and staff. Dr. Patel began branching out to locums work, initially with agencies. He found locums the best model for maintaining his own standards of practice for emergency medicine and to pursue his passion for global health. Dr. Patel has worked extensively across the world on charity medical missions, initially focusing on Central and South America, and currently works on projects in Haiti to deliver medical care to community outside Port-au-Prince. This was an uplifting and inspiring conversation, and I'm thankful to call Rip a friend of the podcast and a friend of Women in Medicine. Enjoy. Welcome to the Revitalizing Doctor podcast. We interview trailblazers in medicine that embody the Revitalize Women vision to empower women to innovate and influence medicine, to value authenticity, respect, and work-life harmony. We recognize the challenges in medicine, and we're committed to providing coaching-informed strategies to help you go from surviving to thriving. I'm thrilled today to have Dr. Rip Patel on the podcast. And this is a unique episode because we usually have women on the podcast. So I'm very excited to have an ally of women in medicine, Dr. Patel. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I practice emergency medicine. I live in Houston, Texas. I joined the faculty at the Baylor College of Medicine with their EM residency about 10 years ago. And then I also do locums tenens work. I used to work with agencies, and now I work with a group that I started about 8 years ago. And we work in several different states, and basically we contract directly with hospitals instead of going through agencies. I initially did that because I had a project in Haiti I was going to frequently, global health project. And unfortunately, with the situation in Haiti, we were unable to go back. But it really allowed a lot of modifications for lifestyle, allowed me to do things outside of medicine. And I know we could talk a lot about why I do locums work 100%, but ultimately to me, it's about control and controlling my own life, my own practice, how I practice. And it's just allowed me to get back to doctoring when you're working in a system sometimes that works against you on that.
Well, let's dig in on that a little bit because a lot of our listeners are feeling maybe a little bit burned out and frustrated. And I have noticed many of my friends will do locums work. And I think a lot of people feel maybe scared to do locums work because it seems like it's less stable. Can you talk a little bit about why it works so well and maybe the physician that's scared to even look into it, why they should maybe take the leap?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think when you look at yourself as a locums, you're a freelancer, like a freelance photographer, freelance plumber. And so you really don't have guaranteed work to start with. Part of the benefits of joining an agency is when you work, they get compensated for it. So they're really incentivized to make you work. When I started out in my city, it was all big staffing companies that were owned by private equity firms. And that made practice environment for me, which emergency is a very high specialty, very challenging and just stressful. And so in that sense, with agencies, they will book you, they will connect with the hospitals and set your work. And if you start with one, I think what most people do is they move to a city, their spouse has a job, they can't find a job yet, they do a little locums work. They're between jobs, they do a little locums work, or they have a full-time job and they want a little additional income, so they do some PR and locums. I think that's traditionally how people go about doing it, which is completely acceptable and a great way to go. And there's some disadvantages to that. The main one being that because you're locums, you're very expensive to the hospitals. So these contracts don't last a long time because the hospitals want to get full-time staffing. But if you decide you like it, then you can get 2 locums contracts with 2 agencies or 1 agency and 2 different places to work. You could do 3. You could credential it in infinite. There's no limit of how many you could credential at. And then when you have multiple options, you can then create your own practice. Now that could be through agencies, or what we did is just contract directly with hospitals. And so we have so many options for places to work that we're never really short of work. And when we don't want to work, we just tell the hospitals we're not available. And which was really important during COVID, because as many people realized during COVID, emergency doctors were furloughed because volumes went down, which sounds really ridiculous. Why would you ever want an overstaffed emergency room, right? But it was the one time I was really grateful we had so many clients because 2 of our hospitals furloughed us and we were able to redivert our shifts to other places. And so that's kind of how we've done it. We sort of do an extreme version of locums, but I think most are going to be the traditional like PRN or just something part-time.
So does your locums group, are you looking for any more emergency physicians or you're set, you have your fully staffed right now?
You know, we're pretty small and most people that work with me are people I've met who want to continue doing long-term locums work. But as I was mentioning, longevity with working with agencies is short because the agencies charge a lot of money to hospitals for you to be there. And so when you get really accustomed to a hospital, you enjoy it, you like the people, it's kind of disheartening when the hospital doesn't need you anymore. And so I think that, as well as a bunch of other reasons, including agencies being a middleman, they were looking for alternative options. And so I was just overwhelmed with too many places that needed help. And so, we couldn't have a small group. We've been together for a while. We're not really looking to expand, but whenever people ask me, I just ask them if it's a good fit. And if you do locums full time, there are challenges with it, being very flexible, working with new people, going with the flow, especially in the ER when things may not work out. And I found some people enjoy it temporarily and it may not be for everybody long term, but the pay is better. You make your own schedule and it's just really nice to work for yourself.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Are you a physician mom with school-aged children feeling utterly exhausted? My friend Dr. Sheeta Shaffi invites you to take a little time this summer to join her in a small, intimate group for meaningful conversations. Dr. Shaffi is an emergency physician, coach, and mom to 8-year-old twins. She understands firsthand what you're going through. This isn't a pizza party or a yoga class. You'll meet for 2 one-hour sessions twice a month starting in July to help you move out of exhaustion, let go of mom guilt, and live a life you're not only proud of, but can truly enjoy. Connect with her on LinkedIn or Instagram at Sheeta Shafee to learn more. Sheeta is spelled Shideh, and Shafee is spelled Shafie. You can also check the show notes for a link so you can connect with her there as well. Yeah, I've thought a lot about that with emergency medicine. And I don't know if there's any statistics on this. Maybe you know, since you've been in the locums world for such a long time. It seems to me like a particularly high risk time for malpractice would be being new at a place.
Yeah.
That you just, I know that intuitively. So when I've started at a new place, I go slower because I know I don't know the system. I don't know the people. And so I need to slow down a little bit to compensate for that, that I just can't go in and just like bust out the traditional number of patients that I might when I'm comfortable at a place. Knock on some serious wood. That's worked for me when I've been new at a place. But do you know anything about that, or what's your sense, or have you developed any strategies to kind of protect yourself when you're new at a place?
We have a very strong rule code when we work anywhere. We really don't subscribe to metrics. We don't subscribe to Press Ganey. We tell the hospitals this, and if they decide to implement these things, we just say, thank you. We're going to move on. We'll stay credentialed. When things change, we'll come back. We come into practice medicine, and if that means seeing one patient an hour, if that means seeing 4, we're going to go at our own pace, and you're not going to dictate how many patients we see an hour. With that said, we don't do RVU models, which I think can be a big hoax. It's a big scam because a lot of these companies are not transparent. And what ends up happening is these young grads come out and they're bragging about seeing 3 to 4 an hour. The corporations are getting rich and you're putting yourself at liability, and you cannot see 3 or 4 patients an hour and do good charting, do good history, do a good exam, do a differential. It's absurd. And especially if you have somebody sick in between that. And so we come in and you do your best. And usually that will translate to about 1.5 to 2 an hour, but there's just too many variables in that equation. There's a lot of things that we do to start to make sure you mitigate all those things you were talking about. Talk to the doctors that are there. I always go for a shadow shift before. The biggest thing liability wise I found is actually the EMR. The ERs are all pretty much the same everywhere. And after you've worked at 30 plus places in the last 8 years, you sort of know how everything works. But if you don't know the EMR, it's going to get very tricky. And so we only work with about 3 of them. And the rest of them, if you say this EMR, I say no, because you're setting me up to fail. There's no way I'm going to be fast, even with the scribe. So I think if you take the EMR part out of it, you go a day before, you get a lay of the land and you meet the people. And we have I wrote an article a while back called like the checklist. And I just have a little checklist I make that when I start, just boom, but like very Atul Gawande style, boom, boom, boom. How do you admit peds? What is your stroke protocol? Do you dice do cats here? How do I access radiology? All these little things, when you get through those 20 questions for me, that part is out. And then, so whenever I start, it's all done. The login is a big issue. Make sure your login works. That sounds really simple, but it can really screw you up on the first day. And then the other big thing we do is we purchase our equipment, and that's not anything crazy expensive, but the 2 big things for us are airway equipment and ultrasound. So having those 2 things alone helps about if we have issues with not having that kind of equipment. And so I found with all those things in place, it hasn't really been much of an issue. And after 1 or 2 shifts, you're pretty good to go. And you have to always remember these hospitals are so grateful to have you. If you're another ER doc in Houston, Texas, good luck. Get in line, buddy. There's a million of us. But if you go out to rural New Mexico or Indian tribal nation, they are so grateful to have you as a board trained, board certified EM. So they don't really hound you about the things that make most physicians, I think, so miserable. And the patients are just so grateful. They're so grateful that you're bringing your skill set out there.
That sounds really powerful. For some of the physicians that are listening that feel beat down, frankly, by some of these really malicious players in our specialty and in medicine at large right now. So it sounds like it could be good for the soul to get out to these more rural places, to these places that really appreciate, like you said, our unique skill set.
Yeah, there's just in emergency, especially in the community, there's so many variables between Is it a staffing company? In Houston right now, the two big staffing companies, Envision and APP, went belly up. And so the hospitals, or big hospital systems, are frantically trying to figure out what to do. And between that and directors and CMOs and dealing with consultant Jim that is not going to come for your STEMI, to admitting, to nursing, there's just so many variables in our job. And you just don't know what could change the next day. And so that doesn't mean you shouldn't take a regular community job, but I think you should also always protect yourself. Sadly, I think we do one of the hardest and greatest jobs, but I think we're very much a liability. And a lot of times our colleagues may or may not so much appreciate what we do when they're sleeping at night, knowing we're taking care of their patients. A lot of them are very grateful. Some of them, not so much. And so I found locums have been a nice tool where we have so many places we cover. And it's funny what you were mentioning before about going at being new. It's even with all the things we put into place, you still have that a little bit of anxiety. So now we sort of go to the same 8 places. And so rather than constantly doing new contracts, which gets exhausting, plus credentialing, we have a good group of 8 that we constantly go to. And so we just have really nice relationships with all of them. And we know the systems well. And then every few years, group sells out to X staffing company, and we are not going to, play with them. And so we find a new hospital to cover. And so I think people that maybe want to do locums more, if you find a good group of hospitals to go to and go directly to them, then you're coming at a good price point and they'll probably need you long term. And I think it works out a lot better.
I love that. And I just want to circle back to, we're definitely have to put in the show notes, the checklist that you mentioned. It's mind boggling to me that something as complicated as providing emergency care, that we don't have a standardized way of onboarding. I mean, some places I've started had no orientation. It was just like, oh, you're board certified emergency physician. Great. Here you go. And it's crazy to me that we haven't standardized that. So I'm really excited to look at your checklist. And I totally agree. I actually write on the back of my badges codes to doors, because that's the other thing. If they end up having a keypad and you have to go to the bathroom and you can't figure out how to get in there, that's the worst.
Yeah. So we just it's a simple checklist. And unfortunately, there's not much forgiveness for doing a poor job on the first day. And that's partially your responsibility. And it's not that hard. Literally going in, asking the basic questions. And then if you have a scribe, by the way, I don't use scribes for charting, but scribes are really nice to navigate you through the systems when you may be new to a hospital. Something to think about. If you have a scribe, what must remind us, you have Epic and you've got a pretty simple admitting system. It's really not that bad. But if you go in on the plus side, you've prepared, you spent 20 minutes looking at the trauma room, checking the gyroscope, seeing what their ultrasound machine is. How do you admit? Who do you transfer? Do you have a HUC? These basic things, once you've nailed all that out, starting your first day is usually pretty smooth and it's not bad. And then things work out really nice. And on the flip side, if you go in and you do a really good job, boy, they're going to love you. Because I'll tell you, people who do locums, some do it for money. I do it because it pays well, but I do it for the system issues. So I want to go back to practicing medicine like my dad used to do. My dad's a doctor too. And then unfortunately, some people do locums because they can't work in house. And so there's a big variation on who goes to locums contracts. And so hospitals always trying to get some idea. Is this somebody who's like a disaster that can't function anywhere? Or is it somebody who just likes traveling? And so there's very easy ways to go and be successful. And in the end, to me, it's very gratifying.
That's awesome. And I really do hope some of our listeners will think long and hard about it, because I just interact with so many people that are miserable where they're at. And I think reminding physicians that you are highly skilled, you are capable, and you do have agency. You have choices every day with where you work and what you do.
I think locums is hard for people. And I don't think locums is the panacea. It's not the answer to everything, but I do think you should sit down and ask yourself. And I think most doctors I've talked to, I take it a day at a time. I've been doing this I never thought I would be traveling. I was going to be the medical director at the hospital I was born at. That was my goal when I came out of residency, and nobody sat me down in a chair and scolded me about what the playing field is like. I had no idea. I was naive and young, and coming out, I just didn't know. But I think it's usually the system. I don't think it's so much the job. The job gets me, of course, worked up and what I'm going to see today. But when I have people, as you were mentioning, how many are you going to see an hour? Did you bill critical care time? Are you going to oversee APPs? And don't get me started on that one. I don't mind working with APPs. They're part of our profession, but I'm not going to work at a very critical place with the new nurse practitioner who has no emergency experience and then expect to see all of their patients and sign all their charts. And it's just these kind of things are so miserable. And I found on the flip side, when you go somewhere and you're hourly, you chose to be there. And my psychology really changes when nobody's telling you to work there. I chose to work there. And so there's no reason for me to be upset because I told them I'd work these days. And so that level of control and the system, I think, is what I found made me so upset. And having that freedom now to just practice. And if somebody ever says to me, hey, you're too slow. We had an article come back about our group in the Wall Street Journal a while back. And I mentioned a director who analyzed my metrics. And he said, in 1 hour, I spent too much time with the patient because I was doing a complicated chest tube. And I was just like, that's very red flag, dangerous mode to practice. And that was after the run of shifts. Thank you so much. Next month they wanted help. I'm like, we're just not available right now. Sorry. I agree with you. People need to ask yourself, why am I stuck in this? And what can I do? And I think as doctors, we get a lot of things. We get take your MCAT, do your pre-meds, apply to med school, apply to your residency, apply to your fellowship. So just getting a job is easy, and stepping outside the box is a little more challenging, but I think there's a lot of rewards that will come with it.
Yeah. What I heard there is boundaries, which certainly has been getting a lot of play in the lay press. Where do you think you got that from? Do you think you just knew that, or did you develop them along the way? I mean, I will say, like, obviously this podcast talks a lot about women in medicine. Watching my male colleagues, they seem to be able to lay that down a lot earlier on. What's your own personal take on that?
Do you mean boundaries like just with the job?
Yeah. Like how you were able to say, no, that's crap. I needed to spend that long with that patient. That's what it took. Yeah. And I'm not going to work here anymore. I could do that now. I couldn't have done that the last 10 years.
I will say I had a director my first year of my job that was working with the big staffing. I just wanted to be close to home and close to my mom and dad and the hospital I was born at. And I just wanted to work there. And I had a director that was so awful. He kicked me in my face, broke all my teeth. He just destroyed me mentally and physically. And I ended up leaving, and I learned a lot about the toxicity of what this job can bring in the community, especially the peer reviews and how it can be thrown under the bus and what that can lead to, the complaints. And I was just unaware. And literally within 8 months, this nefarious director, I was taught all this. And so I had such a horrific introduction to community medicine. I quit. I said, you know what? I can't do this. This is like not what I'm going to do. I did not sign up for this. I can't believe nobody told me this was like in residency. And the pay was awful. We had this low hourly with the RVU, and he would harass me all the time on my days off and going into staff meeting. I could go on and on. But 8, 9 years later, I actually reflect on him a lot, and I'm grateful because he changed the course of my life. Because at that point, I set the boundaries there. I'm like, I want to know how much money I'm making. I want an exact figure. I don't want some murky number. I want to make my schedule. I'm not going to do day off, night off day. These are ridiculous. I mean, pilots have to take time off to sleep. Why don't we? And it's just the way we get abused in our job. And then when we make a mistake or something happens, we're the ones that are held accountable. And so I think I just had such a negative experience when I started traveling. I met a guy that traveled, and he told me about it. He actually, I call him the Indian Fabio. I'm South Asian as well. And he told me he did it to model. And I was like, oh my God, give me a break. And I talked to him more, and he wanted to do his modeling and his movie. He did some music videos, but to work with his schedule, he did locums work. And I talked to him more, and I was like, that's, for what I may want to do, that might work out, because I was trying to go to Haiti more and it wasn't working with them. And so I just set the standards there, and I'm like, I can't practice like this. I'd rather you tell me I'm too slow and ask me to leave than I did a good, thorough job to the patient. And that's kind of how I've been now. The authority really, really bothers me. And to your point, I work with a lot of male and female physicians, and I work with a lot of younger graduates, both sexes. And it's really frustrating to me the things that they accept because they haven't yet accepted that you are the physician, you're in control. And the most important thing is doing a good evidence-based job of taking care of these patients. Being a faster doctor does not make you a better doctor. Ordering more critical care time or it does not make you a better clinician at all. And then you need to really go on that journey and ask yourself what's important. And if that means I have to fly to Alaska to find a good place, I work in like rural Nebraska, and I work there because it's a really nice place to work. There's no private equity money there. They have all physicians. They have APPs, but they're very well trained. Consultants are very kind. There's not a malignant peer review, and it's just a nice place to work and hourly pay, and they work with our schedule nicely. And so I think finding a place where you can do a good job for what you trained to do, because it makes me so sad when doctors quit. I'm like, you have an unbelievable skill set as an emergency physician. And because of your experience with X, Y, or Z, you're going to let it go. And it's not the right answer. It's burnout to me there's ways to work at it. And I don't think the answer is quitting or starting a real estate company, or which nothing wrong with real estate companies. Don't get me wrong, but that doesn't mean quitting and taking care of your patients as well in tandem.
I love that. And it's such an amazing message that we keep coming to with almost every guest that comes on the podcast is you have this experience in your life that you recognize things can't continue this way. And you got clear on your values, your priorities, and your boundaries, and you knew your self-worth. You 100% knew it. Like, I know that I have this amazing skill set and I am a good doctor. And these other things are crap and I'm not going to take it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think knowing your worth, and that could be on several levels, your skills, how much you're compensated, but going in with that attitude, this is what I'm worth. And if that doesn't match with your values, then we can just move on. But taking abuse is just completely not acceptable. And I think it's sad because we don't really have these discussions in residency. I don't fault my residency for it, but I do tell my residents at Baylor now, a lot of them want to work in the community, and community academics are both wonderful. They offer different things, but understanding these things moving forward about why you went into becoming a doctor and not letting the system. We're all dealing with the system. I talk to people and I give talks. I say, you're trying to be perfect in a very imperfect system. It's never going to be perfect. I don't know how much of it's going to change. I pray it does. But a lot of it's not going to change in our lifetime. And so the things that may not change, we need to work to be perfect or as perfect as we can within it. And when the system gets to be too much, it's time that we find somewhere else to go or something else to do within our specialty, be it going to academics, community, traveling, whatever it is. But there's so many great options for it.
Yeah. And listeners of the pod will know Cherie Johnson. She reminds me all the time that the system is actually us. And she reminds physicians that we actually have a ton of agency. She actually says, and not in a mean way, she's a psychologist that works exclusively with physicians as coaches through coaching. She says she's never met a group of people that are more skilled and make as much money as we do that have such little agency collectively.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And it's hard, I think, when you work with, unfortunately, a lot of our specialty is dominated by staffing companies in the community. A lot of democratic groups sometimes make it challenging to join, and you don't have that agency because, I hate to say it, to them, you're viewed as being replaceable. When there's a contract and you're the problem or they perceive you as a problem, it's not too often they're going to try to work with you. They're probably just going to say, let's find somebody who's not going to cause issues. And that makes you feel, I think, very devalued. And I think working with some of the bigger players doesn't make you feel like an individual. That's really challenging, the corporate side. And then, by the way, it's happening to all specialties, radiology, anesthesia, and we're all sort of dealing with it. And so, again, I've worked with people that work with staffing companies that have a great relationship with the hospital. That's fine, as long as it's not affecting your ability to practice medicine. We do need to advocate more for ourselves and with each other, and supporting organizations that do that as well.
Yeah, I reflect on a lot that, did you do the white coat ceremony? Was that a thing when you went to medical school?
We did, yeah. I went to UT Southwestern, and we did, yeah.
I'm working on my memoir right now, and I read the Hippocratic Oath, the modern version. Again, the one that, if you've gone to medical school in the last 25 years, it's probably the version that was read. And I have never seen it in a hospital since the white coat ceremony. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. And isn't that weird? Like I'm prior military. You see the oaths, the creeds of the military everywhere. It's all over the hospital walls. And I'm like, why wouldn't a profession like medicine, why wouldn't we have the Hippocratic Oath in the doctor's lounge when you walk through the doors of the hospital? Because I really do think there's a disconnect between our values and our ethics. And I think if we were reminded of that more often, we would feel more empowered to, push back when we're being asked to do a lot of these unsafe practices.
I always tell people not to sound negative, but sometimes in the community, you're one patient complaint away from being fired. And that's really, to me, very unfortunate. But on the plus side to me, when I've been traveling now, I found the patients, and we work in kind of very rural, very poor areas. We work with a lot of refugee populations, especially in Nebraska. But I found traveling, I've just done things I've always wanted to do. I just never felt the urge to do them. Maybe because these things, the Hippocratic Oath, these values that are instilled in us sort of just wither away because we're so beat down by the charting and the metrics and the things that the hot sepsis code and you didn't do that. But I found like two things I've been doing. I've always done this when I started traveling. One of my old attendings used to do this was giving patients your card with your cell phone number. And I don't give it to every patient, but the ones you worry about, you want to check up on, you had a phlegmon in your mouth, but it's not a peritonsillar. Just, I'm going to call you tomorrow, see how you're doing. And some of the places I work, the first hour or two is pretty slow. And so sometimes I'll go upstairs and I'll meet with the hospitalist and I'll sort of do like mini rounds and hang out with them. But see your admitted patients, how they're doing. And you just get so much more connection with the job and the people and the patients. You treated them for the acute emergency, you admitted them, and you get to see the follow through. And I think small things like that. And I got that through traveling more. And I think there are a lot of other modalities to get that connection back to medicine. And going back to what you're saying about the oaths that we took, caring for the most vulnerable, how much they respect and look up to us for what we're doing to help them. But I found a lot of connection with traveling, and it's just been really, really, really satisfying. It's not always perfect, but my bad days are they're tolerable, and my great days are really wonderful.
Oh, wow. It's so wonderful to hear that. And I know that locums won't be for everyone, but that's why we founded Revitalize is let's find what will light you up. What will allow you that your light can shine. There is a practice environment for that. It will likely change many times throughout your career. I think that's the thing that surprises me the most is that every few years, I do want something a little bit different. And that's the power of being a physician is we have so many different options available.
Yeah. And I think it's important to go on that journey. And like I said, I was the anti that because I just moved home, took a community job, was ready to go. And the thought of stepping out, and I guess when you hit rock bottom and you have nowhere else to look up, that's when you just start looking at crazy alternative things to do. And that just morphed into more and more where we are now. But I think going on that journey and stepping outside the box and exploring things is really important because you do have an unbelievable skill set. I view all of our degrees as just like a great investment in doing a lot of good for humanity and society at large.
As one of the very few men that we've had on the podcast, we always ask, why do you care about your women in medicine colleagues? Like, what's the why behind that? And then what are you doing to lift up women in medicine?
I think the women in medicine I work with, well, I come from being the baby brother of two older sisters, one of whom is a lawyer and the other one is a pediatrician at Stanford, who's very involved in women's rights there as well as climate change. But, if they're strong, we're all strong. We're all stronger by uplifting each other together. It's just that simple. We're all powerful and we need to be because it's an equitable work environment. I think we need to all support each other. It's as simple as that. It's a stressful place to work. There would be no reason for anybody to feel unequal in those settings or feel that attitude being conveyed to them. I work with a lot of our residency at Baylor is, I believe, one of the most diverse in the country, very minority driven, female driven. And again, I just think it's important because we'll all be stronger together when we're all equal together.
Well said. Well, I want to spend just a moment talking about Wellness in the Vines, which is a conference that will be happening in Temecula, California, very close to where I live, a little bit farther from where you live, but you'll be joining us, right?
I will be, yeah. Dr. Solmeni is one of my actually former residents who is also a co-faculty with me at the Baylor College of Medicine.
Amazing. Well, I'm very excited to meet Farzad. Obviously, I know Murdad very well from working with him in Temecula, and he was actually our first male ally that was featured on the podcast because Murdad went out of his way, which, later told me this is what he does for all new doctors, but he made my onboarding to Temecula so wonderful. And it was a big reason why I'm still there and why I love working with our group. So I'm excited for our listeners to come to the conference. So it's Wellness in the Vines, and the website is wellnessinthevines.org. It's September 18th and 19th, which is right around the corner. So if there's, great thing about being a doctor is often you can trade out of shifts. If you can trade out of some shifts and come out and join us, you'll get to meet Rip, you'll get to meet me. And I think you're going to definitely leave even more empowered, so that you're going to have some new ideas about how to restructure your life, your career, and, get a little closer to that financial freedom, to that sense of well-being that we're all striving for. Anything else you want to say about the conference?
And I'm not like a life coach or vision coach, but one thing I think I've noticed in my short time in medicine is I think we all try to achieve balance. And I think working, 30 locum shifts and making $1 million a year is great financially, but probably not so great on relationships and health. And we're all striving in different ways to achieve it. And I think as physicians, we focus a lot more on the job side because we're caring, kind people, and we often put other people over ourselves. But I think on the flip side, we all struggle to balance our health, our relationships, our finances, spouses, kids, and just goals. And I think the conference is really nice. I've never been, and this is the first time, it's been done, but I really like that it's touching on all those aspects to think about having a balanced life and what maybe you need to downgrade one portion of your life, upgrade another portion to achieve that. And I think everybody's just going to come out much better from it. Some really outstanding speakers coming as well.
Yeah. And it's really about the network and the connections. I'm so excited to meet Callie, who we did an episode with from Carbon Health. That's really blew my mind with some of the amazing things that are happening with the AI interface in medicine. So just a really interesting group of people. And it's a chance to get exposed to something that you would have never found staying in your group, your network at home. So it always costs a little bit of money to travel and stay at a place, but it may end up being something that unlocks a more fulfilling or, a financial revenue stream you weren't even thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I was mentioning before, I mean, as a physician and even APPs, you have such a skill set that you can offer in so many modalities, from consulting, working with not-for-profits, global health work. There's just a lot of venues to do that. And I think it's important to learn about them. I didn't start thinking about these things until I started traveling, actually, and then realizing doing podcasts and then talking, and then you can do freelance writing. Things just spawn. It's funny, when you start doing one thing, it spawns into more and morphs into more. And it's a really fun journey. And I think that income is important. Whatever you make from it or you don't, or value you get from it, I think it's really important. It's really nice. I really appreciate the tiny little checks I get freelance writing, or when I get to do talks and stuff like that. It's very valuable.
I love that. We're going to have you back on the podcast to talk more about the writing. It's a huge interest of mine. Well, this has been an absolute joy. How can our listeners connect with you? Are you on social media? You have a website?
Yeah. Our website, it's www.mercisionem.com. And there's a link there with all the writings I've done, mainly about traveling, actually. A lot of people have a lot of questions about traveling, and I totally get it. And so it's all the writing I've done and the talks and podcasts. And we're actually making a course, just because I've had so many friends call me and I'm like, hey, I've got 2 hours today, but I think it's going to take maybe 20 more hours to talk to you about everything. So somebody was just like, why not just make a course about it? And so we're going to make a course, I think, hopefully done in 2 months. So people that want to do locums or agency or traveling, or just say, hey, I want to do my own locums practice and make my own schedule and, take the whole summer off for the kids, or live on a boat and work in Puerto Rico 6 months and then whatever. I don't know. Or I'm a humanitarian. I work with MSF, but I'm going to open that venue up to people. And so, check the website out. It's got a lot of great resources, the checklist I was talking about, and the suitcase stuff. There's a little tab about things we carry in our suitcase to be prepared. People think we're homeless, and that's okay. But we're always prepared for work. So no questions about that.
I love that. That's an amazing resource, and I can't wait to share that with our listeners. Well, Rip, this has been an absolute joy, and I can't wait to meet you in person. And oh goodness, it's like 1 month exactly. It's August 18th, the day that we're recording. And so September 18th is just around the corner. So thank you again. And thanks for all the work you're doing to make the lives of our patients and physicians and women in medicine better.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Revitalizing Doctor, a project of Revitalize Women Physician Circle. Our mission is to connect women physicians and allies through innovative, value-based coaching methods that align trust, support, accountability, and skill development to ignite the courage and clarity necessary to take bold actions, create change, and thrive. If you're interested in working with us, check out our website at peoplealwayshcc.com/revitalize or email us at revitalizemm.info@gmail.com. This podcast represents the views of our host and guest. It does not reflect the views of any institution we work for or with.
Hi, it's Dr. Risa E. Lewis, dropping in to tell you about a book that Dr. Adara Landry and I wrote. It's called Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact. It's a business self-help book coming in 2024 by HarperCollins. Pre-order now. Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact, wherever you buy your books.